to offer you this lesson from Unity of the Keys Spiritual Center.
Daycare providers, babysitters, childcare staff, youth education staff, teachers, wise women and mentors. All those who nurture, men and women, who give birth to the divine feminine qualities of gentleness, compassion, and intuition. We give thanks for everyone who has ever helped us to feel, to trust our gut, to empathize, to reach out to another, and to fiercely protect that which we love. In the religions of the East, the Divine Mother comes in many forms. She's Kali, the Black Madonna, who's standing on skull bones and has fire in her eyes, and who means sudden death to the ego. And you just don't mess with that aspect of the mother. And there's Durga, the embodiment of strength and beauty. She's depicted as enchantingly feminine with fine facial features, and she's dressed in red with garlands and pearls and bracelets of many jewels. And she also has deadly weapons in her 8 arms, representing her capacity to slay the demons that would oppose virtue. When you look at Durga's face, you can see that she's constantly showering us with her love, kindness, and compassion at the same time as she holds those weapons of protection. Similarly, in the book of Revelation, there are very different depictions of the goddess, the Divine Mother. In the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation, we have the woman clothed with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet and 12 stars in her crown. And we also find the great whore who sits on the many waters, holding in her sacred bowls all the inequities and the trials and tribulations of humanity. The great whore contains in her golden bowls the history of the pain and the suffering of the earth since the beginning of all time. I'm fascinated by the way that women are depicted in the Bible. Before I went to ministerial school, I had studied ancient history and mythology and the work of Joseph Campbell and biblical archaeology, and the idea that there are first stories, and those are ancient, universal stories that are found all over the world, like the flood myths. But I was not prepared for the soul sickness that I felt reading about the history in the Bible of the mass murder of the so-called pagans, the indigenous people who were considered inferior to the worshipers of Yahweh, the only true God. The tears would just well up in me uncontrollably in my Bible class, and my fellow students and my teachers did not know what to do with me. They didn't understand why I was taking the scripture so personally and emotionally. But unlike my Baptist friends and my Lutheran friends and my Presbyterian friends and my Methodist classmates who'd been reading and memorizing these texts since childhood, I was raised Catholic, and I didn't read the Bible. And so it was fresh for me, and it was very real. And I felt like Yahweh himself, who said to Jonah, the prophet, "You're concerned about the bush for which you didn't labor and you didn't grow. Should I not be concerned about the people of Nineveh? Over 120,000 people?" The prophet Jonah was my hero. Even though he went through the belly of the shadow of death in the whale, he came forth and was spit out and went to Nineveh, and he preach to those hateful, no good people he didn't like. And he showed me that zealots and fundamentalists and people who hate have to learn a different kind of spirituality called compassion. And like Jesus, who described God as a hen gathering her chicks in, we all have to come to that love of each other, no matter how different we are, just like a mother who sees the beauty only she could see in that child with the big ears and the freckled face. In studying Scripture, I discovered that even with this narrow-mindedness of the scribes and the Bible writers and the misogynists and the haters in the Bible, who killed the many forms of the goddess worshipers in ancient times, they still could not remove that word goddess from the Bible itself. But in only one instance in the Bible does the word goddess with a capital G appear as a proper title. And that's to the goddess Ashtoreth, the pregnant virgin. Her name appears 40 times, mostly in the book of Kings and Chronicles. Jesus, an itinerant Jewish preacher and son of Mary, a pregnant virgin wife herself, was asked by the scribes and the Pharisees during his time when he lived for a sign, because they wanted to believe, but they needed proof. And Jesus reluctantly gave this, quote, evil and adulterous generation the sign of the prophet Jonah. He said, the people of Nineveh and the queen of the south herself are going to rise up against this generation in judgment and condemn it. That's Matthew 12, 41 through 42. So in solidarity with the persecuted, the worshipers of the many form of the goddess, and the queen herself, the prophet Jesus proclaimed his message of inclusivity for all worshipers and justice for even the so-called pagans. The word Jonah in Hebrew means dove. It's the universal archetype of the divine feminine. It's actually the symbol for Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. Making this connection was important for me in ministerial school. It confirmed in me the realization that Jesus Christ embodied a radically different image of God than the fire and brimstone God, which so many Christians still worship today. He taught that God was a Abun Debwashmaya, the great mother, the birther, the divine motherhood of God. The idea of a mother being a virgin actually predates Christianity, and it was an idea that Jesus would have been familiar with, but only metaphorically. The word virgin means a person who is free of all false images, detached, innocent, without ego. The word virgin in its derivation comes from the word virtus. So etymologically, the roots of the word are connected to the word virtue and the word vir, which means a human, a true human being, the essence of what it means to be human. The Romans derived the word virtus to mean the sum of all excellent human qualities. So the Virgin Mother archetype represents the evolution of our purest and our highest consciousness and our greatest human attributes. Mary is truly a virtuous woman, wife and mother, as all good Jewish women were instructed to be. But there are many other kinds of women described in the Hebrew Bible. But none of them surpass the virtuous woman. For example, in the book of Proverbs, we find the strange woman who could be loose, dangerous, and appears most often in the Bible. Men are admonished not to go near this strange woman. Then there's the evil woman, the neighbor's wife, the foolish woman, and the wise woman who builds her house well. There's the angry woman, with whom it is better to dwell in the wilderness than one such as she. And that goes for angry men as well. And in Proverbs 11:22, the fair woman without discretion. This is a personal favorite. Listen closely. The fair woman without discretion is like a jewel of gold in a swine's snout. So we might say this is an innocent woman being taken advantage of. And in sharp contrast to these other kinds of women in the Bible, the ideal woman is referred to as the virtuous woman, or the good wife. The virgin, the virtuous woman, these come from the same root, but it is not in ancient times at all connected to sexuality. I like to read many different versions of the Bible. So what I'm going to read to you now, my description of the virtuous woman, is what I've gleaned over decades of reading and consulting the Aramaic translations, the New Revised Standard Version, the King James, the Women's Praise Bible, and most importantly, the Children's Bible. So the virtuous woman, who can find her? She's far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts. She will give no lack of gain. She does good and not harm. She puts her hands out to the poor. She reaches out to comfort the needy. She is not afraid, even of snow. For all her household is clothed in crimson, and she herself in fine linens and purples. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She laughs all the time. She laughs at the time to come. The teachings of kindness roll off her tongue. Her children rise up and call her happy. Isn't that great? Her husband, too, he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but none surpass the virtuous woman. Who can find one such as she? Just look around. There is a divine, virtuous goddess waiting to be brought forth inside each and every one of us, male and female. It's the divine motherhood of God within us. It's our capacity for happiness, contentment, inner knowing, our intuition, our compassion, our love, our desire to nurture anything that grows, plants, children, communities, and bring forth new life and celebrate new life, puppies and babies and daffodils. May we bring these virtues forth now. They are so important to relish at this time in history. May we all bring forth these divine attributes. Happy Mother's Day, people of Unity.